The stone court was slick with rain. 20 priests in feathered headdresses stood in silence. A young man's blood still dripped from the carved stone rings. His head lay 30 feet away, separated from his body by a ceremonial obsidian blade. This was not a battlefield. This was a ball game. But was it sport? Was it ritual? Or was it something far more sinister that we still don't fully understand today? When Spanish conquistadors first witnessed the Maya ball game in the early 1500s, they were horrified. The Europeans had never seen anything like it. Players used their hips to hit a solid rubber ball through stone rings while facing possible death. The Spanish called it barbaric. They banned it, but they also documented it. Without their records, we might never have known this game existed. The Maya ball game has puzzled historians for centuries. Archaeologists have found over 300 ball courts across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. Some courts are small, barely big enough for 2 players. Others are massive, longer than football fields. The largest court ever discovered stretches over 545 feet long. That's longer than 2 football fields placed end to end. But size wasn't the only mystery. The ball courts were everywhere, in every Maya city, from tiny villages to massive capitals like Chichen Itza and Tikal. This wasn't just a local game, it was central to Maya civilization. Yet we still don't know exactly why they played it. The game was called pits in the Maya language. This simple word carried enormous weight in ancient society. Every major city had at least one ball court. Some cities had multiple courts, each serving different purposes. The courts were among the most important buildings in any Maya settlement, often located near temples and palaces. Maya rulers used the ball game to demonstrate their power and divine connection. Kings would compete in matches to show they had the favor of the gods. Victories were celebrated with elaborate ceremonies and monuments. Defeats were carefully hidden from historical records. The ball game was not just entertainment. It was politics, religion, and warfare all rolled into one. The heart of the Maya ball game was the ball itself. This wasn't an inflated leather sphere like modern sports balls. Maya balls were solid rubber. They were heavy, sometimes weighing over 10 pounds. They were bouncy, but not in the way we expect. They were unpredictable. Maya people got their rubber from trees in the rainforest. They mixed latex with morning glory juice to make it more durable. The process was complex and required special knowledge. Only certain people knew how to make the perfect ball. This made the balls valuable, very valuable. The rubber ball was so important that entire trade networks existed just for it. Maya merchants traveled hundreds of miles to get the best rubber. Some balls were so precious that they were buried with kings. One tomb contained a ball made of pure rubber covered in jade. This wasn't just a game ball. This was a sacred object. The process of making Maya rubber balls was closely guarded. Only skilled craftsmen knew the exact proportions of latex and morning glory juice. The balls had to be the right size and weight. Too heavy, and they were impossible to control. Too light, and they lost their bounce. The craftsmen who made these balls were highly respected members of society. Archaeological evidence shows that rubber balls were stored in special containers. These containers were often decorated with ball game imagery. They were kept in temples and royal palaces. The balls were treated with the same reverence as religious artifacts. This shows how seriously the Maya took their ball game. The balls themselves were perfectly round, but extremely dense. They could weigh anywhere from 4 to 12 pounds. Modern attempts to recreate these balls show how difficult they were to control. Players needed exceptional skill and strength to keep them in play. The balls could cause serious injury if they hit someone incorrectly. Every Maya ball court followed the same basic design. 2 parallel walls faced each other. Long sloping sides connected them. At the top of each wall, a stone ring was mounted. These rings were perfectly round and precisely placed. Getting the ball through them was the goal, but it was nearly impossible. Most ball courts were oriented north-south. This wasn't random. The Maya believed directions had spiritual meaning. North represented the place where the sun rose. South was where it set. Playing the game along this axis connected it to the daily journey of the sun god. The walls were covered in carvings. These weren't just decorations, they told stories. Stories of gods playing ball, stories of heroes defeating monsters, stories of kings proving their power. Every court was a history book written in stone.
Some courts had special features. At Chichen Itza, the walls are covered with carvings showing players being decapitated. The carvings show blood flowing from their necks. Other players are shown offering their hearts to the gods. These images made archaeologists wonder, was this really just a game? The construction of Maya ball courts required enormous resources. The largest courts could be longer than 2 football fields. Building them required hundreds of workers and months of construction time. The stones had to be quarried, transported, and precisely fitted together. This was not a simple community project. This was a massive undertaking that required royal sponsorship. Maya architects designed the courts with acoustic properties in mind. The sloped walls and enclosed space created natural amplification. Cheers from the crowd would echo and reverberate throughout the court. This enhanced the drama of important moments in the game. The Maya understood sound engineering long before modern architects. The floors of the courts were carefully prepared. They had to be perfectly level to ensure fair play. Archaeological evidence shows that some courts had multiple layers of construction. When the surface became worn or damaged, workers would add new layers on top. Some courts show evidence of 5 or 6 different construction phases over hundreds of years. Maya ballgame players were not ordinary people. They were specially trained athletes. They came from noble families or were selected for their physical abilities. Some were slaves who earned their freedom through skill. Others were prisoners of war who played for their lives. Players wore heavy protective gear. Helmets protected their heads. Thick padding covered their chests and legs. Some wore gloves made of jaguar skin. Others had knee pads carved from stone. This equipment was necessary. The heavy rubber ball could break bones or kill someone if it hit them in the wrong place. The rules of the game are still debated. We know players couldn't use their hands or feet. They had to hit the ball with their hips, elbows, or knees. The ball had to stay in play. If it hit the ground, that team lost. Getting it through the ring won the game immediately, but the rings were placed high on the walls, making this extremely difficult. Games could last for hours. Players had to be in excellent physical condition. They needed strength to hit the heavy ball. They needed speed to chase it down the long court. They needed endurance to keep playing under the hot sun. Only the best athletes could compete at the highest levels. Training for the Maya ball game began in childhood. Young boys from noble families were sent to special schools where they learned the game. They practiced for hours every day. They studied the rules and strategies. They learned the religious significance of the game. This was not just athletic training, it was education in Maya culture and values. The best players became celebrities in Maya society. Their names were recorded in historical texts. Their victories were celebrated with monuments and inscriptions. Some players became advisors to kings. Others were given positions of power in government. Success in the ball game could lead to great wealth and influence. Players also had to understand the spiritual aspects of the game. They learned about the gods who played ball in mythology. They studied the religious ceremonies that accompanied matches. They understood that their performance was not just for entertainment. It was a sacred duty to the gods and their community. According to Maya mythology, the gods invented the ball game. The story is told in the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Maya. 2 hero twins, Hunahpu and Ixbalanque, played ball in the underworld. Their game annoyed the lords of death. The gods challenged the twins to a ball game. If the twins won, they could return to the living world. If they lost, they would die forever. The gods cheated. They used trickery and magic to win. But the twins were clever. They outsmarted the gods and escaped the underworld. This story became central to Maya religion, It explained why the ball game was so important. It was not just human entertainment, it was a sacred duty to the gods and their community. Every Maya king claimed to be descended from these hero twins. When a king played ball, he was reenacting the actions of the gods. His victories proved he had divine favor. His defeats could mean he had lost the gods' protection. The fate of entire kingdoms could depend on a ball game. Temples were often built near ball courts. Priests would watch the games from these elevated positions. They interpreted every bounce and every goal as a message from the gods. A successful shot through the ring might mean good harvests. A defeat might predict disease or war. The ball game was a way to communicate with the spiritual world.
The Popol Vuh describes the ball game in great detail. It explains the rules and the equipment. It describes the strategy and skill required. But it also emphasizes the spiritual significance. The game was not just about winning or losing. It was about maintaining the cosmic order. The gods depended on human players to keep the universe in balance. Maya priests spent years studying the religious texts about the ball game. They learned the proper ceremonies and rituals. They understood the timing of matches according to the calendar. They knew which gods to pray to for different outcomes. The priests were essential to the ball game experience. The connection between the ball game and astronomy was profound. Maya astronomers tracked the movements of planets and stars. They scheduled important matches to coincide with celestial events. The ball game was part of a larger cosmic dance that involved all aspects of Maya life. In 1925, archaeologist Sylvanus Morley discovered something shocking at Chichen Itza. Buried beneath the ball court, he found the remains of real players. These weren't statues or carvings. These were actual human skeletons. Some had been decapitated. Others showed signs of violent death. All were buried with ball game equipment. This discovery changed everything. The Spanish accounts were true. The ball game really did involve human sacrifice. But how common was this practice? Were all games followed by death? Or were these special occasions reserved for important matches? Further excavations revealed more evidence. At El Tajín in Mexico, archaeologists found reliefs showing players being sacrificed. The carvings were detailed and graphic. They showed priests cutting out hearts while players were still alive. They showed severed heads being used as balls in future games. These discoveries created a controversy that continues today. Some scholars argued that sacrifice was rare. They said most games were peaceful competitions. Others believed that death was the normal outcome. The debate became heated. Each side found evidence to support their view. The truth remained hidden in the ancient stones. The archaeological evidence is complex and sometimes contradictory. Some ball courts show clear signs of sacrificial activity. Others appear to have been used only for peaceful games. The difference may depend on the time period, the location, or the importance of the match. The Maya adapted their practices over time. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from the hieroglyphic texts. Maya scribes recorded the outcomes of important matches. Some texts describe celebrations following victories. Others mentioned the capture and sacrifice of defeated players. These written records provide direct evidence of the game's violent aspects. The sacrifice was not random or meaningless. It was part of a complex religious system. The Maya believed that offering human blood to the gods was necessary for maintaining cosmic balance. Players who died in the ball game were considered sacred. Their deaths were seen as gifts to the gods, ensuring good harvests and protection from disasters.
When the Spanish arrived in the Americas, they brought two things: Christianity and writing. They documented everything they saw. This included the Maya ball game. Their accounts are our most detailed sources about how the game was actually played. Spanish priest Diego de Landa wrote extensively about Maya culture in the 1500s. He described ball games that lasted for days. He wrote about the elaborate costumes players wore. He recorded the cheers of the crowds and the tension of close matches. But he also described the sacrifices. De Landa was horrified by what he saw. He called the ball game a work of the devil. He said it was designed to please evil spirits. He ordered his soldiers to destroy all ball courts they found. They smashed the stone rings. They burned the equipment. They killed players who refused to stop. But De Landa also preserved important information. He wrote down Maya words for ball game terms. He described the rules in detail. He recorded the names of famous players. Without his work, we would know almost nothing about the actual gameplay. His horror at the violence helped preserve the very thing he wanted to destroy. Other Spanish writers confirmed his accounts. Bernal Díaz del Castillo wrote about watching ball games in Mexico. He described the skill of the players and the excitement of the crowds. He also wrote about the sacrifices that followed important matches. These accounts became crucial evidence in the ongoing debate. The Spanish documentation is invaluable, but must be interpreted carefully. The writers came from a Christian culture that viewed human sacrifice as evil. They may have exaggerated the violent aspects of the game. They certainly misunderstood the religious significance. But their basic observations about gameplay are reliable. Spanish missionaries learned Maya languages and customs in order to convert the population. Some became fluent in hieroglyphic writing. They translated ancient texts and recorded oral histories. This work preserved information that would have been lost when the Maya civilization collapsed. The destruction of Maya culture by the Spanish was tragic, but not complete. Some communities preserved their traditions in secret. Some texts survived hidden in remote locations. Some ball courts remained intact beneath jungle growth. The Maya ball game tradition persisted in modified forms. In the 1900s, archaeologists began systematically studying Maya ball courts. They mapped thousands of sites across Central America. They photographed carvings and translated ancient texts. They slowly pieced together the full story of the ball game. One of the most important discoveries came from Copan in Honduras. Archaeologist Robert Scharrer found a ball court with unique features. The walls were covered with hieroglyphic texts describing actual games. These texts mentioned specific players, scores, and dates. For the first time, historians could track the ball game through time. The texts revealed that ball games were political events. Kings used them to demonstrate power. They challenged rival rulers to matches. Victories were celebrated with monuments and inscriptions. Defeats were carefully hidden or explained away. The ball game was not just sport, it was statecraft. Another breakthrough came from Palenque in Mexico. Here, archaeologists found a tomb with ball game imagery. The deceased ruler was shown playing ball with gods. This confirmed the religious importance of the game. It also showed that ball games continued in the afterlife. Death was not the end of the competition. Modern technology has revealed even more secrets. Ground-penetrating radar has found ball courts beneath modern cities. Laser scanning has revealed details in carvings that were previously invisible. DNA analysis has identified the remains of specific players. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle.
The work of archaeologists has shown that the Maya ballgame was more widespread than previously thought. Courts have been found in areas where Maya influence was minimal. This suggests that the game spread to neighboring cultures. It also indicates that the game had universal appeal beyond Maya society. Excavations have revealed the daily life of ballgame players. Archaeologists have found the remains of training facilities. They have discovered equipment storage areas. They have uncovered evidence of special diets for players. This information helps us understand how seriously the Maya took their athletic competitions. Despite centuries of research, the exact rules of the Maya ballgame remain unclear. We know the basic structure. Two teams tried to get the rubber ball through stone rings. Players could only use their hips, knees, and elbows. The ball could not touch the ground. But many details are still debated. How many players were on each team? Some evidence suggests teams of 2. Other sources mention larger groups. The size of the courts might provide clues. Large courts could accommodate more players. Small courts were probably for pairs, but we cannot be certain. What happened when someone scored? Did the game end immediately? Did teams switch sides? Did they play multiple rounds? The carvings show moments of celebration. They show crowds cheering and players embracing, but they don't explain the formal procedures. The role of the rings is also mysterious. Some scholars believe getting the ball through the ring won the entire game. Others think it was just worth extra points. The rings were placed at different heights in different courts. This suggests the rules varied by location or time period. The equipment adds to the confusion. Players wore different types of padding in different eras. Some courts have carvings showing players with elaborate costumes. Others show simple loincloths and basic protection. The game may have evolved over time, changing rules along with the equipment. Maya texts mention different types of ball games. Some were played for entertainment, others had religious significance. Some involved large teams, others were one-on-one competitions. The variety of games makes it difficult to establish universal rules. Modern attempts to recreate the game have provided some insights. Researchers have built replica courts and equipment. They have trained players using ancient techniques. These experiments have shown how difficult the game was to play. They have also revealed strategies that ancient players might have used. The scoring system remains one of the biggest mysteries. Some evidence suggests that getting the ball through the ring was worth many points. Other evidence indicates that it ended the game immediately. The Maya may have used different scoring systems for different occasions. The most controversial aspect of the Maya ballgame is human sacrifice. Archaeological evidence shows that losing players were sometimes killed. Winners might also be sacrificed. The reasons behind these deaths are still debated. Spanish accounts describe several methods of sacrifice. Decapitation was common. Priests would use obsidian blades to cut off players' heads. The heads were sometimes displayed on poles or used in future games. Heart extraction was also practiced. Priests would cut open chests and remove beating hearts as offerings to the gods. But sacrifice was not always immediate. Some players were kept alive for months. They were treated as honored guests. They participated in religious ceremonies. They were fattened up like sacred animals. Then they were killed in elaborate rituals. Their deaths were considered gifts to the gods. The victims were not always players. Sometimes they were prisoners of war. Sometimes they were slaves who volunteered for the honor. Sometimes they were nobles who had offended the king. The selection process was complex and varied by time and place. Not all games ended in death. Many were peaceful competitions. Winners received prizes like jade, feathers, or cacao beans. Losers might be fined or humiliated, but they were allowed to live.
The sacrificial games were special occasions reserved for important events.
The religious justification for sacrifice was complex. Maya priests believed that human blood was necessary to feed the gods. They saw the ballgame as a cosmic battle between life and death. Players who died in the game were considered heroes who had given their lives for the community's benefit. Some sacrifices were voluntary. Players might offer themselves as sacrifices to honor the gods. This was considered the highest form of devotion. These voluntary sacrifices were celebrated with elaborate ceremonies and lasting monuments. The timing of sacrifices was carefully planned. They often coincided with important religious festivals. They were scheduled to coincide with astronomical events. The deaths were seen as part of a larger cosmic cycle that involved the movements of planets and stars. The question of how common sacrifice was in the Maya ballgame divided scholars for decades. Some argued that most games were non-violent. They pointed to the large number of ball courts. Cities would not have built so many if most games ended in death. Others believed sacrifice was routine. They cited the graphic carvings found at many sites. They noted that Spanish accounts described frequent killings. They argued that the Maya saw death as part of the game's spiritual meaning. New evidence emerged in the 1990s that helped resolve the debate. Archaeologists found ball courts with no evidence of sacrifice. These courts had simple burials or no burials at all. This proved that peaceful games did occur, but other courts clearly showed sacrificial practices. The current scholarly consensus is that both types of games existed. Peaceful competitions were common. Sacrificial games were reserved for special occasions. Important political matches might end in death. Regular tournaments were usually nonviolent. The Maya adapted the game to fit different contexts. This understanding has changed how we view Maya civilization. Rather than being constantly violent, the Maya were complex. They could be peaceful in some situations and brutal in others. The ball game reflected this duality. It was both sport and ritual, entertainment and religion. The debate has also influenced how archaeologists approach their work. They now look for evidence of both peaceful and violent games. They examine the context of each ball court to understand its specific purpose. They consider the time period and cultural influences that shaped each site. Modern scholars have also reconsidered the Spanish accounts. While the conquistadors were horrified by Maya practices, they were also trying to justify their conquest. Their descriptions may have been exaggerated to make the Maya seem more barbaric, but the core facts about sacrifice appear to be accurate. The academic debate has produced valuable research. Scholars have studied the religious texts in greater detail. They have analyzed the archaeological evidence more carefully. They have compared Maya practices with other ancient civilizations. This work has deepened our understanding of pre-Columbian America. Today, versions of the Maya ball game are still played in parts of Mexico and Central America. Indigenous communities have preserved the ancient traditions. They use modern rubber balls instead of the heavy ancient ones. They play on concrete courts built to resemble the originals. These modern games are mostly peaceful. Players compete for prizes like money or livestock. There is no sacrifice. The religious elements have been removed or transformed, but the basic structure remains the same. Teams still try to get balls through rings using only their hips. The modern game has helped scholars understand the ancient one. Watching how players move and strategize provides insights into ancient gameplay. Comparing modern equipment with ancient artifacts reveals how the game evolved. These living traditions are valuable research tools. Some modern players claim to be descendants of ancient Mayan nobles. They say their families have played the game for thousands of years. While this is impossible to verify, it shows how important the tradition remains. The ball game is not just history, it is living culture. International tournaments now feature teams from different countries. Players travel from Guatemala to Mexico to compete. They wear traditional costumes and perform ancient rituals before matches. These events celebrate both the sport and its cultural significance. The modern revival of the Maya ball game began in the 1970s. Anthropologists working in Mexico encouraged indigenous communities to preserve their traditions. They helped build new courts and organize tournaments. They documented the games to preserve knowledge for future generations. Modern players have had to adapt the ancient game to contemporary conditions. They use lighter balls that are easier to control. They play on smaller courts that fit modern spaces. They modify the rules to make the game safer and more accessible, but they maintain the essential elements that make it recognizably Maya.
The revival has been embraced by Maya communities as a way to preserve their cultural identity. Young people learn about their ancestors through playing the game. Elders pass down traditional knowledge to new generations. The ball game serves as a bridge between past and present. Many surprising facts about the Maya ball game are not widely known. For example, women sometimes played the game. Carvings show female players wearing the same equipment as men. Some texts mention women's teams competing against men. This was unusual for ancient societies. Children also played ball games. Archaeologists have found small balls and miniature courts at Maya sites. These were not just toys, they were training tools. Children learned the game from an early age. Skilled players were highly respected in Maya society. The ball game was international. Evidence shows that Maya teams traveled hundreds of miles to compete. They played against other Mesoamerican cultures like the Aztecs and Zapotecs. These matches were diplomatic events as well as sporting competitions. Maya players developed special techniques that are still studied today. They learned to control the heavy rubber ball through precise body movements. They developed strategies for working as teams. Some of these techniques were so advanced that modern players struggle to replicate them. The economic impact of the ball game was enormous. Entire industries existed to support it. Rubber harvesters, ball makers, court builders, and costume makers all depended on the game. Kings spent vast sums on ball courts and equipment. The game was central to Maya economics. The ball game also influenced Maya art and architecture. Sculptors created elaborate carvings depicting players and matches. Architects designed buildings with ball game themes. Poets wrote verses about famous players and spectacular goals. The game inspired creativity across all aspects of Maya culture. Maya astronomers used ball game courts for their observations. The north-south orientation made them useful for tracking celestial movements. Some courts were aligned with specific astronomical events. The game connected earthly competition with cosmic cycles. The ball game was also connected to Maya mathematics. Courts were built using precise geometric principles. The placement of rings required advanced calculation skills. Players had to understand angles and trajectories to succeed. The game demonstrated Maya mathematical knowledge in practical ways. Maya kings used the ball game as a tool of political control. They sponsored tournaments to demonstrate wealth and power. They challenged rival rulers to matches to settle disputes. Victories proved divine favor. Defeats could lead to loss of power or even death. Some kings were famous players themselves. They competed in public matches to show their physical prowess. They wore elaborate costumes that identified them as rulers. Their victories were celebrated with monuments and inscriptions. Their defeats were carefully hidden from history. The ball game also served as a form of taxation. Players had to pay fees to compete in official tournaments. Spectators paid to watch important matches. Winners had to share their prizes with the king.
The game generated significant revenue for Maya governments. Diplomatic relations between cities often depended on ballgame outcomes. Winning teams were treated as heroes. Losing teams faced humiliation. Some wars were started over disputed matches. The game was serious business in Maya politics. Royal marriages were sometimes arranged through ballgame competitions. Noble families would challenge each other to matches. Victories could lead to advantageous marriages. The game was a way to form political alliances and resolve conflicts peacefully. The ballgame also served as a way to integrate conquered peoples into Maya society. Rulers would invite defeated enemies to compete in matches. Victories could lead to forgiveness and integration. Defeats might result in harsher treatment. The game was a tool of social control. Maya kings used ballgame victories to legitimize their rule. They claimed that their success in the game proved divine favor. They built monuments celebrating their victories. They incorporated ballgame imagery into their royal regalia. The game became part of royal propaganda. The Maya ballgame was deeply connected to religious beliefs about death and rebirth. Players were seen as representatives of the gods. Their matches reenacted cosmic battles between life and death. Victory meant the continuation of the natural order. Defeat could bring disaster. Maya priests played important roles in ballgames. They blessed the equipment before matches. They interpreted unusual plays as divine messages. They conducted sacrifice ceremonies when required. The game was as much a religious ceremony as a sporting event. The timing of games was carefully planned according to religious calendars. Certain days were considered lucky for playing. Others were avoided. Full moons were popular times for matches. The connection between the moon and the ball was seen as spiritually significant.
Afterlife beliefs were also connected to the ball game. Maya tombs often contained ball game equipment. The deceased were expected to continue playing in the underworld. Some burial chambers were designed to resemble ball courts. Death was not the end of the competition. The ball game was also connected to Maya creation myths. According to legend, the gods created humans to play ball. The game was part of the natural order established at the beginning of time. Players were fulfilling their cosmic purpose by participating in matches. Maya shamans used ball game imagery in their healing rituals. They would describe illnesses as spiritual battles similar to ball game matches. Successful treatments were compared to winning goals. The game provided a framework for understanding health and healing. The ball game also influenced Maya concepts of time and history. Important events were dated according to ball game cycles. Royal successions were timed to coincide with major tournaments. The game provided a structure for organizing historical narratives. Recent scientific techniques have revealed new information about the Maya ball game. Chemical analysis of rubber balls has shown exactly how they were made. DNA testing of player remains has identified family relationships. Computer modeling has reconstructed how the ancient courts functioned. One surprising discovery involved the acoustic properties of ball courts. Scientists found that the sloped walls created special sound effects. Cheers and shouts were amplified and focused. This enhanced the drama of important moments. The Maya had designed their courts with acoustics in mind. Isotope analysis of player bones has revealed their diets. Successful players ate better food than ordinary people. They consumed more protein and luxury items like cacao. Their health was carefully maintained through special training regimens. Being a ball player was a full-time profession. Satellite imagery has helped locate previously unknown ball courts. Remote sensing technology can detect the rectangular shapes beneath jungle growth. This has led to the discovery of hundreds of new sites. Each discovery adds to our understanding of how widespread the game really was. DNA analysis has also revealed the genetic diversity of Maya populations.
Players from different regions had distinct genetic markers. This suggests that ballgame teams were often composed of local players rather than traveling professionals. The game was deeply rooted in community identity. Computer simulations have helped researchers understand how the heavy rubber balls behaved. Modern recreations show that the balls were extremely difficult to control. Players needed exceptional skill to keep them in play. The difficulty of the game explains why successful players were so highly valued. Chemical analysis of court surfaces has revealed what materials were used for construction. Lime plaster was commonly used to create smooth playing surfaces. Special additives made the surfaces more durable. The Maya had sophisticated knowledge of construction materials. The Maya ball game influenced many other Mesoamerican cultures. The Aztecs adopted it and made it even more violent. They built larger courts and increased the frequency of sacrifices. Other cultures modified the rules to fit their own beliefs. The basic concept spread throughout the region. European colonization nearly destroyed the ball game tradition. Spanish authorities banned the game and punished players. They destroyed courts and burned equipment. They forced players to convert to Christianity. But some communities kept the game alive in secret. Modern Maya communities have worked to revive the ball game tradition. They have built new courts and organized tournaments. They have taught the game to younger generations. They have connected with other indigenous groups to share knowledge. The tradition is being preserved for future generations. The ball game has also influenced modern sports. Some scholars see connections between Maya ball game strategies and modern soccer tactics. The emphasis on hip movement has inspired new training techniques. The spiritual aspects have influenced how some coaches approach team building. The game has also inspired modern art and literature. Writers have used Maya ball game imagery in novels and poems. Artists have created paintings and sculptures based on ancient carvings. The game continues to capture the imagination of creative people around the world. Maya ball game imagery has appeared in popular culture. Movies and television shows have featured the game as a dramatic element. Video games have incorporated ball game mechanics into their gameplay. The ancient sport has found new life in modern entertainment. The game has also influenced modern religious practices among Maya communities. Some churches have incorporated ball game elements into their ceremonies. Traditional beliefs about the spiritual significance of the game persist alongside Christian practices. The ball game remains a bridge between ancient and modern spirituality. The Maya ball game reveals important truths about ancient Maya civilization. It shows that the Maya were not primitive or barbaric. They had complex social structures, advanced technology, and sophisticated beliefs. The game required mathematical precision, artistic skill, and athletic ability. The ball game also demonstrates the Maya understanding of astronomy and mathematics. Courts were aligned with celestial events. Calendars determined when games could be played. Mathematical calculations governed the construction of rings and walls. The game was a practical application of advanced knowledge. Most importantly, the ball game shows how sport, religion, and politics were interconnected in Maya society. Nothing existed in isolation. Games had spiritual meaning. Religious ceremonies included athletic competition. Political power was demonstrated through physical prowess. The Maya saw all aspects of life as connected. Today, the Maya ball game continues to fascinate and educate. It challenges our assumptions about ancient civilizations. It shows us that the past was more complex than we imagine. It reminds us that human beings have always sought meaning through physical competition and ritual. The stones of ancient ball courts still stand in jungles across Central America. They wait for new generations of archaeologists and scholars. They hold secrets that we have not yet discovered. The Maya ballgame is not just history. It is a doorway to understanding one of humanity's greatest civilizations. As we continue to study these ancient courts and decode their mysteries, we gain new respect for the Maya people. Their ballgame was not just sport or ritual bloodshed. It was a complete expression of their worldview. It was how they understood life, death, and everything in between. And in that understanding, we find echoes of our own human nature. The debate over whether the Maya ballgame was sport or ritual bloodshed may never be completely resolved, but perhaps that question misses the point. For the Maya, there was no separation between sport and ritual, between competition and religion, between entertainment and cosmic order. The ballgame was all of these things and more. It was a window into their entire civilization, a reflection of their deepest beliefs about the nature of existence itself. In the end, the Maya ballgame teaches us that human beings have always sought meaning through physical competition. Whether that competition involves life and death or simply the joy of athletic achievement, the fundamental drive remains the same. The Maya gave that drive form and meaning in ways that still captivate us today. Their game may be ancient, but the human spirit it represents is eternal.